What is up, gamers? Welcome back to Game Brigade. My name is Brian. Thank you guys for joining me today. We're going to be taking a look at Blood Rage Valhalla from Tycoon Games. This is one that I've been very interested in seeing. The campaign launched earlier last week. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to film this video. It was my daughter's birthday this last weekend. But I didn't, I wanted to film this, but now we are. So we're going to take a look at the campaign. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the campaign page for Blood Rage Valhalla, which is on Gamefound. Links are always in the description down below if you have any questions regarding BGG page or Gamefound links. I'll always have that information in the description down below. So let's actually go to the campaign page, not the rewards tab that I was looking at. But yeah, this is $700,000 right now, 24 days left to go. A little less, honestly, than what I expected, but that's because a lot of people have, what am I doing here? A lot of people have been pretty down on Valhalla. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what is Blood Rage? Well, Blood Rage originally, I believe, came out in 2015 from Simon Games by designer Eric Lang. And it is one of the iconic dudes on a map games. It is still within my top 50 of all-time games. I love the game. Essentially, you are going to be a clan fighting for victory points, utilizing a drafting mechanic, which we'll see here as well. We're going to be drafting cards that are going to augment your faction. So you're going to be getting cards that can upgrade your units, monsters, increasing your combat strength one time in a battle, or getting quests. That is still organically part of Blood Rage Valhalla. So you're still getting that same feel, but the structure of the game has changed a little bit, most notably with the game board, which also is one of the biggest, I say, contention devices. They do say that they are updating the game board. Let's see if I can find the update. All right, well, they're showing the game board here. I would like to actually find a better visualization of what the game board is, because it is a big change for what the game is going to be trying to do and what makes this unique versus Blood Rage. So let me take a second to find a photo of the original board, which they do actually have in the rulebook, which I have the rulebook up right here. Okay, so actually, nice that I remember that I actually had the rulebook. So this is obviously prototype components. All those things are subject to change, which they have already kind of suggested that they're changing this, because people hated the look of this board. I get it. Everyone said it's Clue. You're playing Blood Rage in the Clue board, and I don't disagree. I do think you have that view looking at this, but this is basically Valhalla. They're saying that Valhalla is a palace of sorts where the gods are feasting after you have ascended, and they're representing that here. Now, what is uniquely different about this game versus the original Blood Rage? Blood Rage took place on a circular board. Within the middle was Yggdrasil, which is kind of like the central focal point of the map. And you can kind of move all over the place. This one's, the movement restrictions are more in place, and you're not able to send your units directly into every board space. So if there's a god territory, you're not able to send them. So let's say, for example, we're going to be placing our units in this bottom left hemisphere of the board. If I take a march action, I can only send my units through connected doorways. So you can see there's a connected doorway here, here, and here. So I can march my units to any of those locations. And the nice thing is, a march action, you can kind of spread your units around if you choose to do so. But let's say I was in this kind of eastern side or western side of the board here. If I choose the march, I only can go up or down. So it's going to limit movement, which is going to force players to have a little bit more strategical thinking when it comes to placing their units on the board and which territories they're going to take over. Now, you still will be getting a reward, which will be increasing your stats, which is very similar to Blood Rage, based on the completed battles. And only adjacent units from opposing factions, when you declare a battle in a region, are able to join in. So again, the location is going to be very important in that regard. The other factor, if we go back to the board here and kind of scroll up to the drafting phase, one of the other changes that I very, very much like is you're going to be drafting your cards. You're going to play you're going to play your cards. In the previous Blood Rage, you're only able to keep one card going forward into the next age of cards you're going to be drafting. In this one, you're actually able to retain 3 cards. So you're going to pick up your discarded cards, all the cards that you played that age. You're going to pick 3 of them. Any cards you don't pick are going to be discarded from the game. So you're not going to have access to those cards anymore. So it's going to kind of change the strategic depth of where you can take your clan and the decisions you want to make. And then you're going to be drafting additional set of cards for the next round. The other new change when it comes to drafting, which I like, is that it's completely variable based on the gods that you have in play. What do I mean by that? So if we go back to the rule book and we scroll down, okay, so we're talking about preparing the board here on this rulebook page. So in the old Blood Rage, you had age cards for age 1, age 2, and age 3, and you would just draft from those, and they would escalate in terms of the power of the cards based on the age you're on. This one is not that way now. So as I said, based on the gods you pick, you're going to select 3 gods. Now, the more expansions you have, the more gods you've available to. We'll talk about this in terms of your pledge level decisions. And each of those gods has a 25 card deck. You're going to select those, take those 25 card decks from the 3 gods, and you shuffle them together to form a singular 75 card deck. And you're going to be drafting all 3 ages from that singular deck. Why do I think this is pretty cool? Well, based on the gods you have, it's going to change the available types of strategies that players are going to have available to them during the drafting phase. One of the things that people loved about Blood Rage in general is the fact that there were some strategies that were very strong that are so much different than other dudes on a map games, specifically in this case the Loki strategy, which wants you to like lose battles and lose your units because you get more points for those kind of things. Not every gaming group liked that these higher end strategies were so dominant and controlling. Well, now you can customize your decks and you can completely take Loki the god out, play with a different Loki instead, which will completely change those strategies. But if you do like Loki, maybe there's some other strategies that are going to be more contentious and kind of and make that not as powerful it was before. I like this change a lot. It does incentivize, though, for people to purchase more expansion content, which we'll talk about in a second. So in terms of the changes from the original game, you've got the board change, which in my opinion, I don't mind the design thought of why they're doing it. Yes, it does look like a poorly designed map. I'm not going to disagree with you there. I'm not here to keyboard warrior with anyone that. I do think it looks like Clue, as everyone has said. But I think the concept works, and I like that it offers a little bit more strategic value when it comes to that. They also changed a little bit in terms of your board here. You no longer have your leader. Instead, you have 2 elites that you can upgrade, as well as your general units. This can change. We'll talk about the Rainbow Bridge a little bit. Actually, let's talk about that now. So you have your faction change. Actually, we're going to talk about that. Let's finish doing talking about this. So they removed the leader. You now have 2 elites. The clan board has also completely changed for the better. They've removed things like fjords, the water locations, obviously, because we're fighting inside of a building. There's no use for boats. So you used to have a boat upgrade and monster upgrades. Those are gone. Now you just have strict upgrades for your entire clan. I think this is a better change. I like this. It lets players focus more on the strategy that works for them. Going all monsters, going all unit upgrades, and your quests that you want to take advantage of, they're actually going to have to be slotted into an upgrade slot, potentially removing your ability for getting that upgrade later because you're committing to a quest now. I like that a lot. They've also reworked one of these to basically remove the amount of units you can have at just additional scoring, which I like that as well. So in my opinion, all of these changes, in my opinion, are positive. The big question a lot of people been asking me, though, is why would I own one or the other? Well, their solution is the Rainbow Bridge expansion module. Now, I will be upfront. I don't see myself ever utilizing this module. It seems like it's a little bit too much for the payoff. But the way this works, you're going to play a regular game of Blood Rage, and you're going to have this board to the side, which is going to show which gods you're fighting for the game of Valhalla, and you're going to have additional rewards for winning the favor of an additional god. And if you win that favor, you're going to get a special card for the Valhalla game. But it's going to require you to play a full game of Blood Rage and then another full game of Valhalla. A little bit too much for me in terms of gameplay. But the other interesting thing about the Blood Rage Rainbow Bridge is your leader, which is no longer implemented in Valhalla, if you're playing with this expansion, will also be becoming part of your faction. You'll have a special 3-power leader available to your use. So that's kind of like their gimmick of like, how do we implement Blood Rage with Valhalla to make it some value? I think it's a little bit too much in terms of actual like gamers, like attention span and fatigue. I don't think I'd see this happening, but there are people who might be like that. So let's take a look at the pledge tiers. At the gates of Valhalla, this is the base game, $85. Now, I will tell you, I think this is very important because it's going to come up later. And if I'm wrong, please comment down below and let me know what I'm wrong. But I dug and looked for what is Kickstarter exclusive or Gamefound exclusive. I couldn't find much. And I think that's going to matter when it comes to decision making points, because they do say here, obviously, retail is going to be more expensive at a significant price increase. Like, that's a significantly big cost. But it does matter when it comes to things like the shipping costs and whatnot. And originally, crowdfunding exclusives are what made these games so coveted in terms of their price points. So when we're looking at the retail price here, $85 is the base game. The base game includes 5 gods. So you have your factions here. You've got your 5 factions. You got your 5 gods, Tyr, Freya, Thor, Balor, and Loki. And you've got your standard components. So this is enough for your play. You also have the monsters that you'll be have available to you in the game, as well as the Rainbow Bridge. They have some expansions, which we're going to talk about. The biggest thing here, you have an alternative clan, 3 new gods, 100 cards, obviously. They're adding some more stuff there. More monsters for you to play with, which are cool. Some of them have been revealed. Same thing here with the Divine Devastation. It's just adding additional more. This one's actually, sorry, I was going to say, this one is actually the miniatures for those gods. You can kind of have an idea of like what gods are to be announced. They're saying there's going to be more. So that's kind of what I've noticed with all their pledge tiers. When you go to the rewards and you look at some of the other tiers, they've changed how they did the tiers. Tabletop Tycoon has changed the way that the previous tiers were. For example, Ankh. Down here they have Ankh 2nd Edition, and then they have the Eternal Expansion Pack as well as the Foundations Upgrade Kit. The Upgrade Kit is purely just the cosmetic bundle that you could have bought. Otherwise, the other expansion is basically just takes all the expansions that were available and combines them into a singular expansion. I do believe this also is including the stretch goals from the original game. So it's like stretch goals plus expansions, because you have all the stretch goals here, plus you have the Pharaoh expansion. So I believe that's kind of what I can tell that Tabletop Tycoon is doing, is let's take the stretch goals and let's take the expansions, all the gameplay expansions, and make them a singular box. That's why they're kind of expensive. The only thing that sucks for stuff like this is, let's say you had, and maybe it's good because some people are complaining about the value being lost for their older content, is this does bring back retired crowdfunding exclusive content, but you're having to pay a pretty premium for that. For example, I'm missing one of the expansions for Rising Sun. I would love to be able to pick that up, but instead I'd have to buy all the expansions when I only just need the one. And it's an expansion that I've been told isn't not necessarily important, which is why I don't own it. But I wouldn't mind adding on to my pledge if given the opportunity, but $129, I think I'm second guessing that myself on that one. So that's kind of how they're doing it on that. But let's take a look here at the total bundles. You have the Gates of Valhalla for $85. The Heroes of the Hall of Heroes, rather. I was going to say the Bitfrost, but that's below. This is like basically the all-in bundle for Valhalla. So if you're looking for the miniature upgrades, all the expansion content for playable, you're looking at $225. The Bitfrost bundle, this one is one that I have a hard time recommending to anyone, because I don't necessarily know, without playing it, this is without me playing, which version of Blood Rage would I rather own. Would I rather have a Blood Rage original or Valhalla? I have a hard time seeing the reason to own both, and I don't know if the Rainbow Bridge really makes that work enough for me to want to own both. I think, based off what I've seen, I'd rather own Valhalla. Now, I'd like to see what the final print is of their map, but I don't know if that's going to be changed by the time this crowdfunding campaign is over. But if you were decided you want everything, you're looking at $400 pre-shipping for that. Now they have the complete Pantheon. The shipping on the complete Pantheon is absurd, so make sure you guys are aware of that. But this basically gets you everything in the Blood Rage trilogy, because you can see obviously we're not a trilogy anymore when you're adding Valhalla as a second standalone continuation of Blood Rage. But this gets you all the gameplay plus all the expansion content as well as the upgrade kits. So that's kind of what you're looking at right there. One thing notably missing that I didn't see are playmats and things. The playmats were very highly desirable for Blood Rage and whatnot, and technically all of these games. People really like the playmats. Not seeing anything like that, so that, you know, take it or leave it. Some people hate that or love that. You also have this random tiny epic Vikings 2nd edition being drawn up. I do believe Tabletop Tycoon has purchased this branding, the tiny epic series, and that's why you're seeing this added on there. If we take a look at the shipping here, this is what I was kind of talking about. Make sure you look at your country, but if I were looking at the United States, because that's where I'm based, $20 for the base game. So you're taking that $85, you're going to have to add that 20, and now you can really truly compare that versus the retail cost. The complete Pantheon, $115, that's a bit much. Now, when I talk about is it worth it or should you back or however I'm going to title this video, my biggest thing with this one is I know that this game's going to come to retail. I am not seeing anything that's going to be exclusive that I could tell for the campaign, other than maybe, I believe, one thing at the very top. I think it might be in the Y section here. Right here, first printing exclusive, this Warden monster. Other than that, I don't necessarily see what is exclusive. And there's a chance, obviously, with retail, you get a lot of discounts, you get a lot of sales, and you might be able to purchase this at a cheaper price without having to pay the taxes, especially if you are thinking about getting the complete collection. So that's my only thing to consider. But of course, crowdfunding campaigns can't, you know, these games can't exist without crowdfunding, or so they say. I don't know, but the shipping costs are pretty high, and I don't necessarily see a why back now here that really screams to me to say, yes, I need to buy this right now through this crowdfunding campaign, when you could just wait till it comes to retail and see what more people think when it comes to the differences versus Blood Rage or Valhalla. So that is my thoughts here on this one. I think Valhalla looks good. As I said, I've gone through this rule book here. I've read through almost the entirety of the rule book, trying to make sure I understand the game, how the drafting mechanics work. Like right here, they talk about the 3 cards that you're going to be taking. I really wanted to make sure I understood this, and I actually think the rule book is really well made. I think they did a very good job with the rule book, and everything I've seen here, it looks like a refined version of Blood Rage, and there were things about Blood Rage that were starting to wear on me that made the game less enjoyable, and I think this might fix some of those things for me. But I would love to see what people think when this game comes out. It's hard for me to immediately recommend this one as a must-buy. I know there's a lot of people harping on this campaign overall. I think there's people being a little bit critical without actually checking out and looking at what is happening. But I think some of it is also valid when it comes to the board map and the design of the way it looks. But it's not like the Blood Rage original board was that great looking either, guys. Let's be serious. They're not very great looking boards. But that's it. I appreciate you guys for watching. My name is Brian. You've been watching Game Brigade, and I will talk to you very soon.